Here we're picking up The Most Dangerous Game for Part 2. After question 6, we're at paragraph 40. He saw no sign of a trail through the closely knit web of weeds and trees. It was easier to go along the shore, and Rainsford floundered along by the water. Not far from where he landed, he stopped. Some wounded thing, by the evidence, a large animal, had thrashed about in the underbrush. The jungle weeds were crushed down, and the moss was lacerated. Lacerated means to cut, or lacerate is to cut, so lacerated would mean that the moss was cut up. One patch of weeds was stained crimson, that's red. A small glittering object not far away caught Rainsford's eye, and he picked it up. It was an empty cartridge. A .22, he remarked. That's odd. Okay, a .22 is a type of bullet, and it's pretty small caliber. It must have been a fairly large animal, too. The hunter had his nerve with him to tackle it with a light gun. It's clear that the brute put up a fight. I suppose the first 3 shots I heard when the hunter flushed his quarry and wounded it. The last shot was when he trailed it here and finished it. He examined the ground closely and found what he had hoped to find, the print of hunting boots. They pointed along the cliff in the direction he had been going. Eagerly he hurried along now, slipping on a rotten log or loose stone, but making headway. Night was beginning to settle down on the island. And the question, what does Rainsford encounter in the forest? Another confident hunter like himself? A recent hunting site where a large creature was shot? The body of a large creature that had been hunted? Or a recent hunting site where many animals were shot? And he said that it must have been a large creature because of the size of the area that was disturbed. So I'm going to go with that one, which is correct. Bleak darkness was blacking out the sea and jungle when Rainsford sighted the lights. He came upon them as he turned a crook on the coastline, and his first thought was that he had come upon a village, for there were many lights. But as he forged along, he saw to his great astonishment that all the lights were in one enormous building, a lofty structure with pointed towers plunging upward into the gloom. His eyes made out the shadowy outlines of a palatial chateau. Palatial is like a palace, and chateau is a castle-like manor house. It was set on a high bluff, and on 3 sides of it cliffs dived down to where the sea licked greedy lips in the shadows. Mirage, thought Rainsford, but it was no mirage, he found when he opened the tall, spiked iron gate. The stone steps were real enough. The massive door with a leering gargoyle for a knocker was real enough. Yet about it all hung an air of unreality. He lifted the knocker, and it creaked up stiffly, as if it had never before been used. He let it fall, and it startled him with its booming loudness. He thought he heard steps within. The door remained closed. Again Rainsford lifted the heavy knocker and let it fall. The door opened then, opened as suddenly as if it were on a spring, and Rainsford stood blinking in the river of the glaring gold light that poured out. The first thing Rainsford's eyes discerned was the largest man Rainsford has ever seen. A gigantic creature, solidly made and black-bearded to the waist. In his hand the man held a long-barreled revolver, and he was pointing it straight at Rainsford's heart. Out of the snarl of beard, 2 small eyes regarded Rainsford. So, which of the following best describes both the island manor and the man at the door? Intimidating and strange, welcoming and friendly, towering and delicate, or cloaked and mysterious? Okay, so it wasn't cloaked because the lights were very clearly seen. Oops, I didn't mean to click that. It wasn't towering and delicate. Welcoming and friendly, certainly not if he comes to the door with a beard. It was intimidating and strange. You notice if you miss one, it just lets you try again. So it does keep track of how many tries it takes you, though. Moving on. Don't be alarmed, said Rainsford, with a smile which he hoped was disarming. I'm no robber. I fell off a yacht. My name is Sanger Rainsford of New York City. The menacing look in the eyes did not change, the revolver pointing as rigidly as if the giant were a statue. He gave no sign that he understood Rainsford's words or that he had even heard them. He was dressed in uniform, a black uniform trimmed with gray astrakhan, which is a gray or curly gray or black curly fur made from lambskin. "I'm Sanger Rainsford of New York," Rainsford began again. "I fell off a yacht. I'm hungry." The man's only answer was to raise with his thumb the hammer of his revolver. Then Rainsford saw the man's free hand go to his forehead in a military salute, and he saw him click his heels together and stand at attention. Another man was coming down the broad marble steps, an erect, slender man in evening clothes. He advanced to Rainsford and held out his hand. In a cultivated voice, marked by a slight accent that gave it added precision and deliberateness, he said, "It is a very great pleasure to honor Mr. Sanger Rainsford, the celebrated hunter, to my home." Automatically, Rainsford shook the man's hand. "I've read your book about hunting snow leopards in Tibet, you see," explained the man. "I am General Zaroff." Rainsford's first impression was the man was singularly handsome. His second was that there was an original, almost bizarre quality about the general's face. He was a tall man, past middle age, for his hair was vivid white. Vivid is intensely bright. But his thick eyebrows and pointed military mustache were as black as the night from which Rainsford had come. His eyes, too, were black and very bright. He had high cheekbones, a sharp-cut nose, a spare, dark face, the face of a man used to giving orders, the face of an aristocrat. Turning to the giant in uniform, the general made a sign. The giant put away his pistol, saluted, withdrew. "Ivan's an incredibly strong fellow," remarked the general, "but he has the misfortune to be deaf and dumb. A simple fellow, but, I'm afraid, like all his race, a bit of a savage." "Is he Russian?" "He is a Cossack," said the general. His smile showed red lips and pointed teeth. "So am I." Cossacks are people who come from southern Russia or Ukraine, and if he says, like all his race, he's a bit of a savage, and then he says he's of the same race, he's admitting that he also is a savage. "Come," he said, "we shouldn't be chatting here. We can talk later. Now you want clothes, food, rest. You shall have them. This is a most restful spot." Ivan had reappeared, and the general spoke to him with lips that moved but gave forth no sound. "Follow Ivan, if you please, Mr. Rainsford," said the general. "I was about to have my dinner when you came. I'll wait for you. You'll find that my clothes will fit you, I think." So, which of the following best describes Rainsford's first impression of General Zaroff? He's an overall extraordinary man who lives in an extraordinary house. He warmly welcomes Rainsford, but Rainsford can tell there's something strange about Zaroff. He is just as, if not more, intimidating and off-putting than his companion Ivan, or he seems very lonely and sad, so Rainsford agrees to dine with him out of pity. Certainly not the last one, and I think he feels less intimidated by him than Ivan. He warmly welcomes Rainsford, but Rainsford can tell there's something strange. I think that one might be it, although he is also, it says overall ordinary man. I don't think he looks very ordinary, so I think this one, where there's something strange about him. It was to a huge beam-ceilinged bedroom with a canopied bed big enough for 6 men that Rainsford followed the silent giant. Ivan laid out an evening suit, and Rainsford, as he put it on, noticed that it came from a London tailor who ordinarily cut and sewed for none but below the rank of duke. The dining room to which Ivan conducted him was in many ways remarkable. There was a medieval magnificence about it. It suggested a baronial hall of feudal times, with its oaken panels, its high ceiling, its vast refectory tables, where 20 men could sit down to eat. 20 means 40. 1 is 20. About the hall were mounted heads of many animals, lions, tigers, elephants, moose, bears, larger or more perfect specimens Rainsford had never seen. At the great table, the general was sitting alone. "You'll have a cocktail, Mr. Rainsford?" he suggested. The cocktail was surpassingly good, and Rainsford noted the table appointments were of the finest, the linen, the crystal, the silver, the china. They were eating borscht, the rich red soup with whipped cream so dear to Russian palates. Half apologetically, General Zaroff said, "We do our best to preserve the amenities of civilization here. Please forgive any lapses. We are well off the beaten track, you know. Do you think the champagne has suffered from its long ocean trip? Amenities are comfortable features. Not in the least, declared Rainsford. He was finding the General a most thoughtful and affable host, a true cosmopolite. Affable is friendly and pleasant. But there was one small trait of the General's that made Rainsford uncomfortable. Whenever he looked up from his plate, he found the General studying him, appraising him narrowly. Perhaps, said General Zaroff, you were surprised that I recognized your name. You see, I read all books on hunting published in English, French, and Russian. I have but one passion in my life, Mr. Rainsford, and it is the hunt. You have some wonderful heads here, said Rainsford, as he ate a particularly well-cooked filet mignon. That Cape buffalo is the largest I ever saw. Oh, that fellow. Yes, he was a monster. Did he charge you? Hurled me against a tree, said the General, fractured my skull, but I got the brute. I've always thought, said Rainsford, that the Cape buffalo is the most dangerous of all big game. For a moment the General did not reply. He was smiling his curious red-lipped smile. Then he said slowly, No, you are wrong, sir. The Cape buffalo is not the most dangerous big game. He sipped his wine. Here in my preserve on this island, he said in the same slow tone, I hunt more dangerous game. Rainsford expressed his surprise. Is there big game on this island? The General nodded. The biggest. Really? Oh, it isn't here naturally, of course. I have to stock the island. What have you imported, General? Rainsford asked. Tigers? The General smiled. No, he said. Hunting tigers ceased to interest me some years ago. I exhausted their possibilities, you see. No thrill left in tigers, no real danger. I live for danger, Mr. Rainsford. The General took from his pocket a gold cigarette case and offered his guest a long black cigarette with a silver tip. It was perfumed and gave off a smell like incense. We'll have some capital hunting, you and I, said the General. I shall be most glad to have your society. But what game? Began Rainsford. I'll tell you, said the General. You'll be amused, I know. I think I may say in all modesty that I've done a rare thing. I have invented a new sensation. May I pour you another glass of port? Thank you, General. The question, how are the General and Rainsford alike? They care deeply about hunting big game, especially. I think that's probably true. They both like to display their kills. We don't know whether Rainsford likes to display his or not. They agree it's best to hunt a variety of animals. Or they both live for danger. And I think I'm going to go with the top one. Good. Okay, we'll pause there for the next section.